This story is about a Latina janitor in a southern public high school who's ridiculed, dismissed, and treated as invisible until one moment of crisis forces the school to see her for who she really is. What unfolds isn't just her personal redemption, it's a ruthless exposure of an entire system built on prejudice, silence, and fraud. What happens when the quietest person in the room turns out to be the one who's been watching everything? You're just the janitor. "Don't even look at the boardroom," snapped Vice Principal Donna Haynes as she shoved past Camila Reyes, nearly knocking over her mop cart. It wasn't the first time Camila had been shoved out of the way, physically or metaphorically, and it wouldn't be the last. Jefferson High in rural Alabama was a school clinging to its old ways, where ESL students sat in broken desks, and bilingual support was an afterthought at best. Camilla had worked the night shift for 3 years, cleaning the same hallways where she once dreamed of teaching. Once a top linguistics student at the University of Texas, she dropped out her junior year when her grandmother's diabetes went critical. There were no scholarships for girls who became caretakers. Since then, she'd stayed quiet, scrubbing floors, emptying trash bins, but never forgetting who she really was or what she was capable of. The morning started like any other, except today. The State Education Board was visiting for a surprise inspection on Jefferson's bilingual program. A program Donna had falsified numbers for. "Where the hell is the translator?" Principal Frank Duval barked, pacing outside the main office. "She just called." Donna set her voice tight. "Her kid's in the ER. She's not coming." Frank looked like he might pass out. "And we're about to show the state how we're leading in dual language access." Donna smiled thinly. "Don't worry, I'll wing it." Camilla, wiping a glass door nearby, paused. She knew what winging it meant. More lies, more polished words covering rotten practices. ESL students' progress had been falsified. Funds meant for bilingual materials were rerouted to athletic programs. Camilla had seen the spreadsheets in the teacher's lounge, heard Donna brag about keeping the paperwork colorful enough to fool the suits. "Excuse me," Camilla said quietly. Frank and Donna turned. I speak Spanish. And Mandarin." Donna let out a scoffing laugh. "Are you joking?" "No," Camilla replied, standing taller. "I studied linguistics before I came here. I know both fluently. I can interpret." Frank blinked. "You can do Mandarin, yes," she said, her voice steady. "You'll lose credibility if the board realizes we're improvising." "Let me help." Donna stepped between them. "Frank, she's a janitor." Camilla's face didn't flinch, but something in Frank's eyes shifted, desperation outweighing pride. "You have 5 minutes. Go clean up, put something decent on, and meet us in the library." Donna's jaw dropped. "You cannot be serious." "I am Frank," said, already walking away. Camilla changed into a blouse and black slacks she kept in her locker, for reasons even she didn't fully understand until now. In the mirror, she pulled her hair into a bun, wiped dust from her face, and breathed. She didn't know what would happen in that meeting, but she knew what it meant to carry the weight of invisibility. She was done being invisible. In the library, seated at a long oak table, sat Inspector Chang and his assistant, Rosa Alvarez. Camilla stepped forward and introduced herself in perfect Mandarin. Chang's eyes lit up, surprised and impressed. Rosa, a bilingual education advocate, nodded slowly, watching every detail. For the first 15 minutes, Camilla interpreted flawlessly. Not just the words, she captured tone, context, culture. She even slipped in an old idiom about shared roots in hard soil that made Chang smile. But Donna wasn't done. "And Camilla," Donna said with a false laugh, "why don't you tell them where you usually work in the building?" Camilla froze. She could feel Rosa's eyes on her. "I clean the school," she answered calmly. "But I also listen. And I've learned that a job title says less about someone than the words they choose to ignore." The room went quiet. Inspector Chang tilted his head slightly, something unreadable in his expression. Donna kept smiling, but her fingers fidgeted. The air shifted. Rosa wrote something quickly in her notebook. Then Chang asked a quiet question in Mandarin. "Who normally speaks for this school?" Camilla responded carefully. Usually, the ones who know the least about the students who need the most. Rosa looked up. "We'd like to follow up with Ms. Reyes privately," she said in English. Donna opened her mouth to protest, but said nothing. Camilla stepped out of the library, knowing one thing: this wasn't over. This was the beginning. "You sure stirred the pot," said Mr. Duval, catching up with Camilla as she walked quietly down the hallway. His voice wasn't angry, just uncertain. "They're asking for a private meeting." "With you?" Camilla nodded, her mop handle still in hand, as if her role hadn't shifted at all in the last hour. "I'm not trying to stir anything," she replied, keeping her voice level. "I'm just done pretending I don't see what I see." That line lingered in his ears longer than he expected. By the time the students spilled out for lunch, word had already spread. Some had peeked into the inspection room and seen Camilla sitting at the table interpreting like she belonged there. Which she did. And that alone rewired the narrative. "Ain't she the cleaning lady?" one football player whispered to his friend. "Nah, bro. She speaks like 3 languages or some crap. I heard she taught the state guy something." The rumors fluttered through the cafeteria like wildfire. But the teachers. They were quieter. Some nodded to her in passing with forced politeness. Others avoided eye contact. Donna Haynes, on the other hand, was boiling. In her office, Donna paced like a lioness with a limp. She threw open her email, 8 new messages, 2 from district leadership. Words like follow-up meeting, bilingual compliance and transparency jumped off the screen. And the worst ACC'd sentence that said, "We'd like Ms. Reyes present to clarify a few cultural dynamics mentioned during inspection." "What cultural dynamics?" Donna hissed. "That janitor doesn't know policy. She's just—" But the sentence died in her throat. She had seen something in Camilla's eyes that morning. Not ambition, not revenge. Something colder, precise, like a long plan was quietly moving forward. Camilla didn't return to the janitor's closet after lunch. Instead, she went home early, citing approved administrative reassignment. She didn't mention that Rosa Alvarez had slipped her a card. It said, Department of Equity Initiatives, Office of State Education. The back read, "We believe you've been preparing longer than anyone knows." At home, Camilla pulled out a hard drive from the drawer under her bed. For years, she had been logging everything: Donna's weekly announcements, rewriting ESL progress reports, budget documents, showing diverted funds, and most damning of all, recorded comments from staff meetings, where Donna used phrases like, "We can't let too many of them in AP courses," or "We want diversity, not takeover." It wasn't paranoia. It was documentation. Because being invisible had made her a witness. And a witness could choose when to speak. That night, she walked down the hallway with her laptop under one arm, past photos of past principals, all white men, their eyes frozen in formal frames. She stopped outside the faculty lounge. Inside, Donna was laughing too loudly, talking to Coach Ray and the chemistry teacher. "She's gonna milk this," Donna said. "They love a charity case with good grammar." The men chuckled. Camilla waited until the next morning to send her file. Not to the school, but to the state board's internal ethics officer, with one line. "This is what I've witnessed. This is what the system is hiding." Later that day, Rosa called. "Camilla, are you available for coffee?" At the Café Azul downtown, Camilla sat across from Rosa and Inspector Chang. Rosa got straight to the point. "You know more than most district officials I've met, and you're one of the only people who's seen it from both ends, the ground and the clouds." Camilla folded her hands. "What does that mean?" Chang leaned in. "We're expanding a statewide program, Equity Access Bilingual Strategy. We need someone like you to help us clean up from the inside." Camilla said nothing for a long time. "Then I want the truth out. But I want it done right. I'm not here for vengeance. I'm here for reform." Rosa nodded. "That's why we trust you." But before she could help them clean the system, Camilla knew she'd have to confront the one part of the school still untouched: its leadership. Because Donna wasn't just corrupt, she was strategic. And she had allies. If Camilla stepped forward too soon, she could be buried by the same system that ignored her. She looked out the cafe window down the quiet street, lined with magnolias. A school bus passed. Kids inside were laughing, unaware of the quiet war playing out in adult rooms above their heads. "Let's be clear," Camila said finally, voice firm. "You don't fix a broken ceiling by painting over the stains. You tear it down, brick by brick." And that was when Rosa placed a folder on the table. Then, "Let's get to work. The superintendent wants a meeting. And he's inviting the board. Officially." Camila took the folder. She didn't open it right away, because she already knew what it meant. It meant the quiet part of her life was over. Camila didn't open the folder until she got home. Even then, she laid it on her kitchen table like it was a loaded weapon. The superintendent's invitation wasn't just a formality, it was a battlefield request. A closed-door session at the district boardroom scheduled for Friday morning. Topic: discrepancies in ESL funding, student placement data, and staff conduct at Jefferson High. Rosa's handwritten note was clipped to the front. "You'll need more than truth. You'll need proof and poise." Camila exhaled her fingers, grazing the corner of the folder before finally flipping it open. Inside were documents detailing the state's initial concerns. But they were just surface-level missing names, vague suspicions. That was why Rosa had come to her. Because Camila didn't have suspicions. She had specifics. And every single one was backed up. She connected her external drive to her old laptop, pulled up the JH Records folder, and began cross-referencing. The timeline was clear. For the past 2 years, Donna had submitted glowing reports on bilingual literacy gains, claiming that ESL test scores had improved by 18%. But Camila's files showed something different: duplicate student records, ghost tutoring sessions, and test scores rewritten before being uploaded to the district database. Worse, those falsified numbers had unlocked a grant meant for schools serving underprivileged multilingual students money that never reached them. She clicked on a file labeled Staff, MTG, Audio 0323. Donna's voice crackled through the old laptop speaker. "We don't want to set the bar low, but if we keep pushing non-English speakers into these metrics, we're going to drag the whole curve." Camila paused. She had played that clip 100 times. But now, for the first time, she imagined playing it out loud in a room full of board members. Her heart pounded, not with fear, but with clarity. Later that night, she stood by her window and watched the lights of Jefferson flicker like fireflies in fog. She thought of the students Miguel who got moved out of advanced science because he didn't speak clearly. Layla, whose parents begged for translation help during meetings, but got blank stares. And the girl who cried in the hallway after Donna told her to use English or stay home. Camila had held all those memories like shattered glass in her pocket, never showing how much they cut. But Friday, she'd lay every shard on the table. Thursday morning, whispers stirred again. Camila wasn't at school. Her cart was in the closet mop, still damp. But everyone knew something was coming. Donna strutted through the main hall like a storm in heels, snapping orders, muttering about how some people just don't know when to stay in their lane. When Coach Ray tried to make a joke about the ESL janitor, even the lunch staff didn't laugh. That evening, Camila rehearsed in front of the mirror. She didn't practice the facts, those lived in her bones. She practiced silence. The pause between exposing a lie and letting it hang. The pause that made people squirm. She wore her grandmother's crucifix not out of habit, but because it reminded her who she was doing this for, every woman who cleaned up after others, while dreaming bigger than anyone expected. Friday morning came like a verdict. The district boardroom was colder than she expected, all wood trim and institutional lighting. Rosa met her outside and squeezed her hand. "Whatever they try, don't flinch." Camila nodded, stepping inside. The board members were already seated, a half circle of blazers and polished shoes. Superintendent Willis offered a polite nod. Donna sat at the far end, wearing red like it was armor, her expression unreadable. Camila opened her laptop hands, steady heart knot. "Thank you for allowing me to speak," she began. "I've worked at Jefferson for 3 years. Not as a teacher, not as an administrator. But I've heard, seen, and documented how our bilingual students are treated. And what I'm about to show you is not an opinion. It's evidence. She projected her screen onto the boardroom monitor. The first slide, 2 copies of the same student report, one real, one doctored. A timestamp discrepancy proved the change. She clicked again. Spreadsheets comparing state funding claims to actual purchases. No ESL materials listed, only gym renovations. Then, the audio clip. Donna's voice filled the room. When it ended, no one said a word. Camila let the silence stretch longer than comfort allowed. Finally, Superintendent Willis cleared his throat. "Ms. Haynes, would you care to respond?" Donna leaned forward, lips tight. "This is taken out of context. She's not even staff. She's a cleaning lady, who clearly has some personal vendetta. She's also the only one who didn't look away." Rosa interrupted. Camila didn't flinch. She didn't need to. Because by then, everyone in the room had already heard enough. But this meeting, Camila realized, wasn't the end of her fight. It was just the moment the world finally realized it had underestimated the wrong woman. The moment Superintendent Willis adjourned the meeting, the tension in the room cracked like dry wood. No one applauded. No one protested. But eyes that once passed over Camila, like she was air, now followed her every step. She gathered her laptop slowly, her hands calm but purposeful. Behind her, Donna sat frozen, her red blazer suddenly looking more like a warning flare than a symbol of power. Camila didn't speak again, not because she had nothing left to say, but because she knew the silence she left behind would echo longer than any words. By the time she reached the sidewalk outside the district building, Rosa was already there, phone in one hand, a coffee in the other. "Congratulations," she said with a tired smile. "The board's requested an independent investigation into Jefferson's funding practices. You triggered something big." Camila didn't smile back. "It's not about congratulations. Not yet. I still work there. Donna still has her keys. And retaliation moves faster than justice." Rosa nodded slowly. "That's why we're offering you something more permanent." Camila blinked. Permanent. Rosa handed her an envelope. Inside was a formal offer: consultant position at the Department of Equity Initiative's, full salary, flexible hours. Camila could help design statewide bilingual equity reforms based on what she'd exposed. But more than that, the contract included something else: a clause giving her whistleblower protection and advisory authority over the internal changes at Jefferson High. She read the paper once, then again. "You think they'll listen to someone like me?" she asked. Rosa chuckled. "They already did." Still, something about walking back into Jefferson that next Monday felt like wading into a minefield. Camila wore the same black blouse and blazer she had worn to the boardroom. She no longer needed the uniform. She had become the symbol. Students stared. A few smiled. One girl whispered "thank you" and vanished into a classroom before Camila could reply. But not everyone was quiet. Near the science wing, Donna's voice cut through the air like a blade. "Look who's back with a clipboard and an ego." She stood near the office door, arms crossed, flanked by 2 teachers who shifted uncomfortably. "I hope your new friends gave you a map for navigating grown-up conversations." Camila met her gaze steady. "No map needed. I've been walking these halls longer than most of your numbers have held up." The silence that followed wasn't hostile. It was hollow. Donna's power was cracking because it had always depended on no one speaking up. Now, someone had. That afternoon, Camila met with Principal Duval behind closed doors. He looked older, more tired than usual. He offered her coffee, which she declined. "You put the whole building on edge," he said bluntly. "Parents are calling. Media's sniffing around. The district's breathing down my neck." Camila folded her hands. "You think this is about headlines? I didn't expose this because I want to be famous. I did it because Miguel almost didn't get to graduate, and no one cared. Because Layla cried in a hallway, and you didn't even ask why." Duval looked down. "I thought, maybe if I kept it quiet, it would blow over." "It never blows over," Camila said softly. "It just blows sideways until someone gets hit hard enough to scream." He sighed. "What happens now? I've been assigned as equity consultant During the state's investigation, I'll be monitoring documentation, student placement, and interviewing families. Starting this week. Duval nodded slowly. You're really not going away, are you? No, Camila replied. I'm finally arriving. 2 days later, she sat across from her first interviewee, Mrs. Tran, whose son had been demoted from advanced math because language processing issues flagged him. But when Camila reviewed his file, she saw a 98% score on state assessments and a handwritten note in the margin that said, "Parent doesn't speak English. Avoid conflict." One by one, the files came forward. Hispanic, Vietnamese, Somali, and Haitian families whose children were quietly shunted aside under the guise of policy. Camila logged everything, every falsified placement, every withheld opportunity. And then came the most unexpected email of all, anonymous, untraceable, just a line of text and an attachment. If you want to know what she's really been hiding, start with this. Camila clicked the file. A spreadsheet opened, and what she saw made her breath catch. 3 years of backdated financial entries under Jefferson's Supplemental Athletic Fund. Vendor names she didn't recognize. Line items labeled consulting fees and special review bonus. Names matching Donna's cousins and former classmates. She leaned back in her chair. This wasn't just academic discrimination. It was financial corruption. Personal gain off public funds, all under the mask of school pride and GPA rankings. Camila forwarded the file to Rosa with one line. We've just scratched the surface. Because deep down, Camila had always known something else was festering beneath the surface. But now, she had proof. And next, she'd make sure everyone else saw it too. Camila stared at the screen long after the email was sent. She knew Rosa would act quickly. The Department of Equity didn't play games once evidence crossed into criminal misconduct. But it wasn't just about money anymore. What Camila had uncovered confirmed her deepest suspicion. Donna wasn't just discriminatory. She was exploiting the entire system. Students had been sidelined, but now it was clear that staff funding, and even the school's reputation, had been manipulated to feed one woman's ambition. The rot was deeper than anyone wanted to believe. The next morning, Rosa's response was swift. You're not alone in this anymore. Legal counsel has been notified. Prepare for escalation. Escalation came faster than expected. By midweek, Superintendent Willis scheduled an emergency district meeting, not in private, but publicly, with press invited. The announcement sent Jefferson High into a frenzy. Teachers whispered behind closed doors. Some scrubbed their inboxes. Donna. She doubled down. Don't let that girl make you nervous. She told Coach Ray in the staff lounge loud enough for Camila to hear as she walked by. She's just riding the moment. We've survived worse. But Donna hadn't survived this, Camila. When the meeting day arrived, the district auditorium was packed. Community leaders, local journalists, and even 2 state representatives filled the folding chairs. A podium stood at the center stage, and behind it, the school board sat stiffly, like they'd just been handed a live grenade. Rosa introduced Camila formally. Ms. Reyes has assisted our investigation into Jefferson High's educational equity practices. What she's about to present is based on direct evidence collected over the last 3 years. Camila took the podium slowly, but her voice was strong. She didn't waste time on preamble. This isn't a personal vendetta. It's a pattern, one that starts with language discrimination and ends with financial fraud. She clicked her laptop, projecting the spreadsheet she had received anonymously. These entries reflect a repeated misallocation of district funds, over $87,000, funneled through ghost vendors tied to a single administrator's personal network. Murmurs rippled through the room. Meanwhile, she continued. Students in need of bilingual support were denied basic resources. Placement tests were manipulated. Grants were stolen from the mouths of the very children they were meant to serve. She paused, letting the weight settle. Here is an audio clip from a staff meeting 2 years ago. Donna's voice played clearly. If we keep feeding every cultural need, we'll end up with a cafeteria and no standards. Gasps. Someone cursed under their breath. A journalist scribbled furiously. Camila turned from the screen. And yet, I was called unqualified. I was told to stay in my place. My place, apparently, was to be invisible. But being invisible meant I saw everything. The silence afterward was cold and crackling. Then, Superintendent Willis stood. Effective immediately, Ms. Donna Haynes is placed on administrative leave, pending legal review. An independent audit will begin this week, and we are forwarding this report to the Office of the State Inspector General. Donna stood up incredulous. This is a setup. She forged that file. She's manipulating all of you. Camila turned calmly toward her. You taught me that silence protects power. I decided to break that silence. Security escorted Donna out. She didn't go quietly, but she went. The red blazer that once radiated control now looked like an alarm. After the meeting, people approached Camila one by one. Some offered thanks. Others shared stories. Parents, teachers, students who had stayed silent because they thought no one would believe them. But now they did. Because one woman in work boots had pulled down a house of lies with nothing but truth, grit, and timing. Later that night, Camila sat in the empty auditorium alone, watching the janitorial crew sweep up the chaos. One of the younger custodians approached her. You coming back to the closet? He joked gently. Or you finally found your office? Camila smiled. Maybe both. But as she stood to leave, Rosa called. We just got a call from the state superintendent's office. They want you in Montgomery next week. High-level meeting. They're talking about designing a statewide equity initiative. Based on what you did. Camila didn't answer right away. She looked out through the glass doors toward the parking lot, where the last of the crowd was fading. Then we're not done yet, she said. We're just getting started. We're just getting started, Camila repeated to herself as she stepped out of the building that night. The wind was sharp, the lot mostly empty, but her breath felt steady, warm even. She had waited 3 years to be heard. Now they were asking her to speak. And not just locally. State officials wanted her insight on rebuilding what people like Donna had corrupted. It felt surreal. A week ago, she was dodging condescending stares while pushing a mop bucket. Now she was about to advise the very people who shaped education policy. The invitation to Montgomery came in formal language printed on Department of Education letterhead. They wanted Camila's voice in a newly formed council tasked with reforming how bilingual and underserved students were supported across the state. Rosa called it a once-in-a-generation chance. Camila called it overdue. But just as she began planning her trip, her phone buzzed with a restricted number. She hesitated, then answered. Reyes, said the voice on the line. You don't know me, but I worked under Haynes years ago at a different school. I've seen what she does. If you're serious about cleaning house, I have more. But I don't talk on phones. The call ended abruptly. A few seconds later, Camila received a single text, Booth 6, Oak Ridge Diner, tomorrow, noon. She didn't tell Rosa. Not yet. She needed to verify first. The next day, Camila slid into Booth 6. A woman was already there, late 40s, nervous eyes, worn cardigan. My name's Tanya, she said, glancing around. I used to run the ESL program at Rosefield Middle. Donna came in, consulted, and within 6 months, half the funding was gone. They said it was streamlining. I said it was theft. Tanya pulled out a flash drive and laid it on the table like it was radioactive. I kept copies, emails, contracts. She's been doing this a long time. Camila took the drive, wrapped it in a napkin, and nodded. You did the right thing. Back at home, she plugged it in, and what she found made her knees weaken. Multiple district contracts under Donna's name, linked to shell companies' identical wording, reused invoices, fake addresses. It was systemic fraud. Worse, the signatures had been authorized by upper administrators, people still working across the region. This wasn't just a Jefferson problem. This was a statewide network that funneled funds away from students in need and into private hands using technical loopholes and fake performance metrics. And now, she was sitting on a data bomb. That evening, Camila called Rosa and requested a secure line. By Monday morning, the file was on the desks of 3 state investigators. At the Montgomery Summit later that week, Camila presented her findings not just as a victim or whistleblower, but as a strategist. She walked the panel through how invisible people are, often the best observers, how janitors hear truths that never show up in reports, and how performance metrics could be engineered to hide abuse. After her speech, a retired superintendent approached her. "You just exposed our entire industry's blind spot," he said, "and probably saved it." Yet Camila wasn't done. She returned to Jefferson that Friday to wrap up her final days as equity consultant. Boxes were being packed. Donna's nameplate had already been removed. But as Camila walked down the familiar hallway, a folded note fell out of her mailbox in the teacher's lounge. No name, just a sentence. "You may have taken her down, but not all of us." She stared at it for a moment, then smiled faintly. Because by now she understood silence is armor for cowards, and exposure is the only way forward. That night, Rosa called again. "The State Department wants to launch a pilot program, bilingual equity certification. They want you to lead it. You'd be training teachers, reviewing policies, holding schools accountable, real oversight." Camila didn't need time to think. "Send the paperwork." She hung up and looked around her now empty living room. A few boxes packed some frames on the floor. Her life was moving faster than she ever imagined. But one thing she knew, she hadn't come this far to tiptoe back into silence. Because if injustice had learned to hide in forms, files, and funding, then she'd learned to dismantle it. One policy, one truth, one brave witness at a time. And she was just getting started. She was just getting started, and the system knew it now. The program offer from the State Department wasn't a favor, it was a pivot point. Camila Reyes, once dismissed as the janitor who eavesdropped, was now the architect of a statewide overhaul in bilingual equity. The paperwork arrived within 48 hours. A contract, a mandate, and something else, a title she never expected: Director of Instructional Equity Pilot Region 1. Camila signed it without hesitation. Her first official day began inside a modest brick building across from the Capitol. The walls were plain, the coffee burned, but the energy was real. Rosa greeted her with a grin. "You've got 10 schools under your watch. We've already had 2 districts try to push back. They know who you are now, and they're nervous." "I'm not here to comfort them," Camila replied. "I'm here to raise the standard." That afternoon, she led her first training a group of veteran teachers from across the state, many skeptical, some openly defensive. One, a man with a thick drawl and a decades-old state pin on his lapel, crossed his arms the moment she began. "What does a janitor know about academic policy?" he muttered. Camila didn't flinch. She pulled up a slide showing his own district's ESL placement discrepancies. She circled 3 numbers in red. "Apparently," she said calmly, "more than your last 5 audits." The room went still. But the tone shifted, slowly. She wasn't there to shame. She was there to rebuild. Not from above, but from within. Over the next 3 months, Camila traveled nonstop rural towns, overcrowded schools, late-night meetings with exhausted parents who'd never been invited to the table. She listened first, then acted. Where necessary, she blew whistles. Where possible, she built bridges. But she never once lowered her standards to soothe fragile egos. Her reforms weren't always welcomed. At one school, a principal openly refused to implement the new placement protocols. "We don't want to get political," he told her. Camila stared him down. Refusing to support multilingual students isn't apolitical. It's cowardice wrapped in paperwork. Eventually, the pushback gave way to praise. Camila's name began appearing in education blogs, op-eds, even a local PBS feature titled "From Mop to Mandate." She hated the title, but she knew what it meant. Visibility was no longer optional. One morning, she received an invitation to speak at the annual State Educators Conference. The theme, Voices That Change the System. She accepted. Standing at the podium months later, she looked out over an auditorium filled with hundreds of educators, parents, board members, even former critics. Her speech didn't begin with a joke or a quote. It began with a question. Who cleans your schools? The crowd blinked. Who walks your halls unseen? Hears your staff meetings from the closet across the hall. Translates parent phone calls. No one else bothers to answer. She paused. If you don't know, then you've already failed. Because the system can't serve students, it doesn't see. And you can't lead what you refuse to listen to. Applause came slowly, then built like a wave. That night after the conference, she returned to her small apartment, now upgraded, but still modest, and opened her laptop. A new email had arrived. This one wasn't from Rosa or the state. It was from Howard University. We'd be honored to welcome you back to complete your degree under full scholarship. And if you're interested, the Department of Education leadership would like to offer you a lecturer position as well. Camila closed her eyes. She thought of her grandmother, her quiet strength, her patience. She thought of Donna of Jefferson High, of every slammed door that she had memorized like a map. And she thought of the students still waiting, still unheard, still underestimated. She clicked, reply. Yes, I'm coming home. Because sometimes justice doesn't come like thunder. It comes quietly through footsteps in hallways, whispers in empty rooms, and the slow, steady hands of those who never stopped watching. Camila Reyes had been invisible. Now she was unforgettable.